We begin at Waterloo Station, where so many camps really begin, with parties gathering in order to proceed to their various destinations. And here we are saying goodbye to Waterloo with a train in the distance and now crossing to the Isle of Wight from Portsmouth. It's only a short journey, about half an hour, and soon we are approaching the long pier at Ryde, and before long we are getting ready to tie up alongside. As we come alongside, we hear the loudspeakers booming a welcome, and as the ropes are put over the jetty, we're told that we can get food on the pavilion. And now on the train going down to Westbrook, and here Westbrook itself with its nameplate and Westbrook's latest addition, a little dog, to welcome us. Mr. and Mrs. Gowing Scopes are the warden and his warden's wife at this place, look after it so nicely for us. There they are, complete with dog, their latest addition. Westbrook has many items of interest. The cricket nets are always in use, very much enjoyed by the boys, but also particularly the Hacker Court, which has now been resurfaced and rewired, and a tremendous amount of energy is expended hitting the ball. It's valuable too, because although it may be raining or rained recently, such as here, you can still play. For those who aren't quite so energetic, there's a game of chess in one of the tents. Checkmate, perhaps. Little bit of orderly work to be done in every camp, but it's all part of the fun. Here's a large supply of potatoes, and when beans come on the menu, you've got a patent beaner, or whatever it's called, in order to slice the beans into appropriate shapes and sizes. Here's golf. As it shouldn't be played, he wants a bit more chalk on his cue. And now one of the items that takes place in the camp is normally a day's outing. And on this occasion, they were going to the other side from the Isle of Wight, up the river to Beaulieu. This is always an exciting adventure. A pair of binoculars is a great help. Up this river and at Beaulieu, certain statesman has an interesting selection or collection of old crocks and old automobiles and old aeroplanes. Here, I think, is a Spitfire, vintage from the Second World War. And having had a meal and having looked round the place, we begin to embark for the return journey in our specially hired launch. Somebody who evidently needs glasses, and so we say goodbye to Westbrook as they wave their farewell to us, and we go and join the beginnings of the cycle camp. A lot of Crusaders are keen cyclists, and here for the cyclist camp they're gathering in the hall of a Kensington church, morning prayers after sleeping the night there, and then receiving their instructions for the journey, the first leg of the journey, they begin to get ready to go. Of course, it's no good going all off together. It would make rather a big group for the roads of Britain, and so they leave by groups, group at a time, each under the control of a group officer. Here's Mr. Michael Rowbottom showing the map of the southern part of Wales, where they were going on this particular jaunt. And now everything ready, and the first group about to leave, and off they go. After they've been given a reasonable start, the next group leaves, and then again very soon the third group, not really part of the cyclist camp, but perhaps they will be one day. And so off onto the open road, and soon the busy streets of London are left behind, and they're on their way to hilly Wales. I wish we could follow this group as they go on their way to Wales, but there are difficulties in filming a cyclist camp if you're not actually going with them, and so we'll say goodbye to them at this point, and we ourselves will go and join the Crusaders at Stoke Fleming. This is Blackpool Sands we're looking down on now from the car window, and now we are coming up the road towards the Stoke Fleming signpost, and the camp is set away up on the hill, beautifully located in typical Devonshire scenery, with the sea quite close beside us. The flag was erected in unusual fashion, memories of the Skylon of the South Bank exhibition. This particular occasion, there was a wide game in progress, and each boy had a balloon that represented his life. Lose your balloon, and you've lost your life. Various ways of endeavoring to hide your life, if you can. One bit under a bushel of rubbish. And here, this particular gentleman is swallowing his and keeping it dark. Of course, you're never quite sure that there aren't going to be some spies arriving in various garbs or guises. And here, this gentleman who looks as though he might have been a traveller from afar is making his surreptitious entry. But he's all part of the game, really, and very soon he'll be set upon and duly dealt with, and no doubt will lose all his lives. Here's one way of escaping: down the tent and up the tent. And now we'll leave Stoke Fleming for a moment and join those who from this camp go out on the moor. This in future is going to be called the Dart and Moor Camp, because we're going to make a lot more use of the moor and a good deal more use of the dart. Here a group have gone off to try roughing it, with real camping in the real sense of the word, doing everything for themselves. And here at the end of a long day is the oxtail soup. You can almost smell the ox as he stirs the soup. And very soon it's ready, and they're drinking it down and glad of it too. And in due course, back they come after 48 hours, real roughing it, feeling rather like heroes and having had a wonderful time. Quite sure that this is by no means going to be the last time they try something of this sort. Of course, you've got the Dart as well, a beautiful river, ideal for boating and sailing, and we're going to make more and more use of this. On this particular occasion, the tall ships were there, waiting for the annual race to Ostend. This is a group who are going sailing, and very soon they were going to have the opportunity of enjoying the thrill of being under canvas, speaking from the boat fashion. This is the entrance to the River Dart, and here these fellows are learning the tremendous thrill of feeling the boat heel over in the wind and balancing with it in order to keep it from heeling over altogether. Tremendously exciting. Only those who have experienced this know exactly the thrill of it. More and more boys who go to the Dart and Moor Camp will find this tremendously interesting part of the program, something they'll want to repeat many times in days to come. For those who want to do a bit of canoeing, that too will be provided here at this Dart and Moor Camp, and they'll discover what speeds you can get up when there are two of you in a tandem canoe, once you've learned to keep together, such as these are doing here. And now a race, not so easy to control the direction at first, but very soon becoming very skillful. Back again in camp with a tasty meal ready, notices to be given out, and another game of a wide game. Here's Mr. Wilfred White showing how to pour out a number of cups of tea with an 8-knot breeze blowing, making due allowance for the breeze as he holds the teapot at the right angle, and the tea goes off at a slant. Of course, the canteen plays a big part in the life of any camp, and as you see here, edible combustibles and luscious drinks are always available. The amount of drink consumed in camp is unbelievable. The amount of chocolate and the like that's purveyed is also tremendous. In addition, we always have a bookstall where there are Crusader materials and helpful books of one kind and another, suitable for the particular age range of the camp. Here, boys, having bought their drinks, are now dealing with them in the normal fashion. We can't leave Stoke Fleming without saying thank you to Mr. Will Harris, the farmer, and his son, who so generously care for us while we're there, a great friend of the Union, in fact an associate member now. We're grateful to him for all he does for us in so many ways. Now we'll come back to London and to the London Bible College, where we normally hold our See London House Party. This is a magnificent opportunity for our country cousins to see something of the delights of London, which the average Londoner never discovers. And now this group is on its way to some interesting site. Very soon now we'll find them on top of a bus going towards the docks of London, which are very extensive, as some of us Londoners know and some don't. And across the river, under the river, by a tunnel for pedestrians only, and on the other side we find ourselves quite close to the Cutty Sark, a reminder of the days when there was no power other than the wind power to take these vessels home on the trade winds from India and the Far East, bringing with them their spices and their tea. This, in fact, was one of the tea ships that came regularly from India, and inside you see how they stacked the different crates of tea in order to provide room accommodation. Here is Captain West, aged 83, officer in charge of the Cutty Sark. How would you like to rig that enormous amount of rigging? And now a brief visit to the Maritime Museum close by, also very interesting, and then up the hill to have our tea, which we brought with us, and looking out over the Maritime Museum and the river. In fact, we were very close to the Royal Observatory at Greenwich. It used to be there. It's now moved away to Sussex. But there is where it was. And there, too, is the 24-hour clock. Greenwich Mean Time, no doubt, or what used to be Greenwich Mean Time. And also the official measurements of yards and 2 feet and 1 foot and the like, where you can come and check your tape measure. And here's a gentleman looking at the line of longitude. Here, east meets west, longitudinally speaking. And there's the actual line itself that you see on your map, or is it? Back again to our tea, where somebody was endeavoring to change the latitude of a sandwich. And there the group, before they returned back to the London Bible College. And so we leave this house party and join another house party which took place in Switzerland at Rosenlau. There in time to see the sun coming up over the jagged mountains. The hotel was situated high up in the mountain. Everyone was well cared for by Mr. Robert Ewan and his merry men who acted as officers. There you see Rosenlau, and there the high peaks above the hotel. And here are some of the idle vice that you sometimes get in Switzerland when Crusaders are about. This road, dozens and dozens of hairpin bends way down to the lake at the bottom. And here comes the post van. All vehicles have to give way to the post van. Woe betide you if you don't. Here among the snow, an opportunity to do some glissading. Most exciting to be able to do this in the height of summer, and also an opportunity to see some of the flowers, the beautiful flowers of Switzerland, as the various places are explored. Here's Captain Hornblower blowing his own trumpet, or perhaps he's smoking a pipe. I'm not quite sure whether he pushes or pulls with this. Anyway, it's one of the sights to be seen in Switzerland, as some of you will have seen yourself. And now a trip down from the hotel down to the lake, or rather down to the lakes, for they're going to visit Interlaken, seeing some of the waterfalls on the way down. At Interlaken, an opportunity of a ride on the lake itself. This was Lake Briance. And now in the gardens of Interlaken, with their beautiful flowers and water and views, and an opportunity of a sail on or a motorboat or whatever it is, footboat and boat normal method on the lake itself. Now the journey done, returning up the mountain to Rosenlau, and we say goodbye to Switzerland with a typical scene of sunset over the mountains. We ourselves go to Feldmoor, where we had a house party in a prep school. This is Surrey at its best. Beautiful scenery. Something to do all the time. This particular occasion there was going to be a game of cricket. Here are some returning from a ramble over the countryside. But of course, one of the most interesting things here was the bathing, the swimming in the swimming pool. Way down in the valley, the swimming pool was reached by means of this strange vehicle, lovingly referred to as the bomb, perhaps because of the speed that it went, quite gently to begin with, but by the time it got to the bottom, it was going about 150 miles an hour, or it felt like it. Way down in the swimming pool, plenty of fun and games. This occasion, there were 1 or 2 officers who'd shown a certain amount of reluctance to come into the swimming pool, and the members of the house party were doing their level best to persuade them. as they're doing here, but without much success. At first, without much success, but finally with every success. And the officer willy-nilly had his swim, whether he liked it or no, and another one too went in soon afterwards. On this particular occasion, these gentlemen running across the lawn are not Arabs. They're all members of the house party, but the officer decided that they would set before them a very resplendent dinner, and they were asked to come in evening dress, so all the boys put on their pajamas. Here goes the staff, suitably attired in order to act as waiters and waitresses on this auspicious occasion, in which a very luscious 4-course dinner was placed before them with suitable drinks to wash it down. Here you see these gentlemen in their evening dress, so-called, thoroughly enjoying these delicacies of food that were placed before them. Well, so much then for Feldmoor, and here you see how to erect a camp in record time with a minimum of effort. All you do is you sow your mushroom seeds the night before, and in the morning, one by one, up pop the tents. All very time-saving and almost enjoyable. In fact, this bit of tomfoolery is to introduce you to the canoeists' camp. There you see them all laid out, ready on their first day to start the canoeists' camp. The canoes have been brought with them in this fashion, and very soon, when the first meal is finished and orders for the day have been received, morning prayers have taken place, and off the party goes, and they will rendezvous with the camp at some place further up or down the river. The orderly group will strike the camp, put it onto vehicles, and will have it erected and supper ready by the time this group reaches its destination. Here again, something that is tremendous fun, unusual, out of the ordinary rut of camping, just ideal for the fellow who's had a good deal of camping experience already and wants to do something quite different. Here it is, very different. Here they are shooting some of the rapids with great skill. What tremendous fun can be enjoyed in this way, especially when you know that when you get to the other end, a tasty meal will be all ready for you. This particular occasion was the day of the aquatic sports, in which most outrageous things were done with 2-man canoes. Here you see 4 up, quite unfair to the canoe, and in the end, of course, disaster results. And then another item was the relay race, in which you have only 1 canoe, but you have quite a lot of people to take part. And here we have a competition in which the first leg of the journey was done backwards, and after a certain point was reached, if you hadn't sunk on the way, the remainder of the journey was more normal. All great fun, all part of the canoeist camp. So we say farewell and leave the canoeist camp and go north of the border to Bonskede, a few miles north of Pitlochry, where on this occasion we had a mixed house party for Crusader boys and Crusader girls. Set in beautiful scenery, in typical Highland country, plenty of opportunity for outings and walks and excursions and the like. On this occasion, the coach was just arriving, or the coaches to be exact, and they were going on a tour of some of the delights of the Highland scenery. Views from the coach, opportunity to get out and see waterfalls. Here's a bit of cold Scotch water. And here's a bit of hot Scotch air, or should I say Scots air. And now on our way to see the Queen's estate at Balmoral, the Queen's house. And here's the Devil's Elbow. Actually Graham Carr, to be precise, but this is the Devil's Elbow itself, so often the scene of cars getting stuck. And now the group that decided they would climb the Cairngorms, and the result and the reward that came to those who managed to get to the top. We leave Scotland now and come south again to Studland, one of the most popular sites you could imagine. And boys come back year after year to this place. A wide game's in progress, very wide. And now the game is over, and they're about to go down the fields to the camp, where you see it nestling overlooking Poole Harbour. Here are the towels, and here is one of the most notable towels I think I've ever seen. And it's time for a bathe. Everybody's ready at the end of the day, all hot and tired and sticky, ready for the delights of a cool swim. Only a few minutes' walk down the lane and out onto the beach, and the tide is out. Not quite so good bathing when the tide is out, because you have to walk quite a long way to get to the sea. But plenty of fun all the way out and all the way back again. And here's a jolly photograph of a number of boys with their heads through the life buoy. I think the young fellow at the bottom is still alive, although he looked as though he was being throttled. And now back up the beach, it's almost time for tea. Try to get dry. Amazing how hard it is to get that wet bathing costume off. But my, what an appetite when you get back. And a delightful meal waiting for you, prepared by the ladies. All you've got to do is to sit down and have it served out when the bell goes and eat it. Food tastes marvelous under canvas. Somehow it tastes better under those conditions than normally, because you get such an appetite. Of course, a little bit of orderly duty afterwards. We're very concerned to have everything spotlessly clean. If the washer-up doesn't manage to do it all well, there are always other ways of making sure that it really is a clean plate when you've finished with it. Now, a word of grateful appreciation to the many ladies who come to our camps and house parties in order to cook for us, in order to prepare these delightful meals that we enjoy so well. There they are, sitting with a cornfield behind them. And now we'll leave them and go abroad again, joining the Cantabrian expedition. This part of Spain was the object of their journey, and after waiting 6 hours, the coach, which had been ordered in advance, turned up, and all the luggage was put on board, and we were finally put down at the destination where the camp was to have its first sight. And then off again the following day to enjoy the delights of this part of Spain, opportunity to see what the normal tourist never sees because he can't get there. Like the army, we stop every so often for a complete rest and a bit of refreshment, and then off again to continue the remainder of the journey before the next stop. Opportunity to see some of the primitive conditions under which some of these people live in these faraway places. Opportunity of being reminded of the one who said, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly of heart." And now at the end of the day, time to prepare a luscious meal. And again, how ready one is for it at the end of such a time of strenuous activity. Marvelous what you can prepare with just a few simple utensils such as these. Marvelous what it does to your appetite. And then an opportunity before the day is done for time of prayer, time of considering the things that matter most, listening to the Word of God. Crusader camps never leave this important item out, and that's what makes these camps so marvelous, as boys, under these conditions, not only enjoy the delights of a holiday, but face up to the demands of a Savior who said, "Follow me," and learning what it will mean to follow, the ruggedness of the way, the testings that will come, the need for resourcefulness, the need for a guide, the need for a way that's clear. So off on another leg of the journey, wonderful fellowship, many lessons learned, and we leave this particular expedition and we'll join the camp at St. David's in South Wales. Another beautiful site set below Carn Liddy, with a lovely rugged coastline that you always get in this part of Wales. Rugged as could be. I wasn't referring to the gentleman with the beard, but to the coastline. Those who are fond of wildlife and bird watching will find plenty of activity here, and not only the unusual activities, but the usual activities too of bathing. And here are some of the ologists seeing a toadstool and wondering who lives underneath. A toad, of course. There's the toad with one leg out. And of course, fun and games on the beach with some tide fighting and with the flag down. And then in the evening, over the Scriptures, learning together of the things of God, so that they'll return home better fitted for the life they've been called upon to live now and in the days to come. So we say goodbye to Crusader Camps for 1962 and look forward to the next time, gratefully. Swanage Station, which is the station for Studland Bay, where lots of you went last year. One of these small sidelines that still seems to have survived, but may not survive much longer, getting out the kit and the baggage, taking it along to the campsite, where we find that the advance party has been doing its stuff as we come in. At least some of it's been doing its stuff, but it isn't quite ready yet. Rather a bad advance party. Here we have to lend them a hand. Here's somebody lending in a hand for the first time. But anyway, by the time night falls, all the tents are up and we go to bed, and the following morning there's good morning commie at morning parade, and at this particular camp they have a bit of ceremonial, break the flag from the masthead, whatever you do, splicing the main braces, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, whatever you're supposed to do, they do it there. And here is the first morning in camp when you wash. It's positive the last wash of the camp, I think. But anyway, the new camper washes on the first morning and even goes as far as to clean his teeth. But his zeal for washing decreases in inverse proportion to the length of the camp, you know what I mean. And by the time you get to the end of the camp, nobody's washing. Well, you know. And then after that, there's quiet time. We don't forget the things that matter most in camp. Of course, that's one of the reasons why we go to camp. For a little while, we spend time over the Word of God and praying for a little while, too. Quartermaster rings the bell and everybody goes in backwards. I can't think why they're going backwards, but this particular occasion, I suppose they wanted to show their faces. Didn't matter. There was the porridge, there were the bacon and the sausages, and there was the bread and butter and marmalade and lashings of tea and my. Then there's a little bit of tent inspection. Not very serious, but of course there's a very important prize to win at the end of camp if you don't find things like this hidden away. Some rather queer potato, I think, actually. I can't think what he's been lying on. Ah, well, takes all sorts. And now for games. This is medicine ball. It looks like a football, but I tell you it isn't. It's most deceiving. You find it weighs about 10 tons. Then, of course, there's paddocks. Paddocks is one of the games we play a lot of at camp. And after paddocks, well, there's something else to do. You're ready for a bathe, probably. Here, just the thing before lunch. Finishes off that enormous appetite. The bathing water blows the whistle. Nobody takes the slightest notice, but eventually they do come in. And meanwhile, of course, way back in camp, the ladies have been hard at work. What a lot we owe to these ladies who endure the rigors of Crusader Camp in order to provide us with edible combustibles of most luscious, desirable kinds. Quartermaster again waggles his bell, and away we come. This time full pelt, no time to go backwards now. We're much too hungry. And down it goes. And then there's a bit of orderly duty, of course. You take it in turns, do a bit of cleaning up, but that doesn't hurt anybody. And then after that, on this particular occasion, well, an excursion. Trip round the bay, sir. Well, more than that. Trip round Poole Harbour, like this. Then a trip down the coast, visiting interesting places en route. See if we can splash the other lot, shall we? All very Christian. That's right. And then we stop for lunch at a nice, attractive place. This is the Lulworth Cove, the Cove of Lulworth. I'm not referring to that office at the back. I'm referring to the place. It's called Lulworth Cove, where we very frequently go. And after that, we visit the Armoured Fighting Vehicles Museum. That's pretty good, isn't it? At Lulworth, where we're allowed to mess about with the tanks and break the guns and do anything we like. Time for a little bit of beach combing. Stroll along the beach in the setting sun. Can't think what he's doing, but I suppose he is beach combing. Anyway, it's been a marvelous day. And, of course, with the setting sun, we're ready to go to bed. And before long, it's breakfast again, and all the world, all the day again of joyous camping. Tremendous fun. We'll have to leave Studland now, and we'll go to, guess where? Yes, Polzeath. Can you read? Yes, good, you're growing up. Polzeath. Now, take away the postcard and you'll see it as it really is on rather a dirty day. Well, still, thank you, Mr. Murray Thompson, for that helpful introduction. There are lots of lovely cliffs at Polzeath. They're favourite ones, too. One particular favourite cliff was one you've already met just now, Cliff Richards, sitting there in the red shirt. And there he's showing whether it's a hit or a miss. What do you think? Well, definitely a hit. It always is where he's concerned, isn't it? And so he shows how to play paddocks, too, as well as playing guitars and other things. Putting up a creditable score, losing his paddocks bat on the way. And at last, the innings is over. Century and all that. Jolly good show. Well done. Thank you, Cliff, for your help. And of course, it's jolly nice to have him in camp, because not only do you get hits and misses at paddocks, but you get the hits in the evening when it's time for the sing-song. I can't think what he's singing. His mouth looks like it could easily be Bachelor Boy, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, it didn't matter. Everybody enjoyed it, whatever it was. And Crusader Camps had an entertainment of the kind they never dreamt they'd get when they read their prospectus. And all for £3.9 and 6 is it? I don't know what it is anyway. It was very cheap at the price. Then, of course, we had to have the camp photograph. Decided we do it differently this year because it's usually such a scramble. So this is the way it's always going to be done in future. Nobody jostles anybody else. You just run backwards instead of forwards, straight into your place. Everybody knows exactly where to go. And before you've turned round twice, instead of all that usual melee, the whole thing freezes into a beautiful camp portrait. Now, what do you think of that? Yes, I think we'll do it. Thank you very much. Of course, the answer's in the negative. This is the officers hunt the officer, pretending not to look like officers. She's a he, if you know what I mean. And all these chaps are going out into Polzeath village to try and look as though they're not camp officers and nothing to do whatever with Crusader Camps. Old Polzeath didn't know what was happening that afternoon. The visitors thought everybody gone balmy. Some chap thought he'd be an Eastern potentate. Another decided he'd build a bridge across the river. There he is, building his bridge. Using his... Yes, that's right. Using a theodolite, much to the odd delight of the campers. Now to Trianon Bay, which is not far away from Polzeath. Just a brief visit there, because we went across in order to play them at soccer. Trianon's a jolly nice site, just as good as Polzeath. Plenty of sand and all the other things that are just right for camp. Here come the Polzeath campers. This is their football team, and the idea was to show Trianon how to play football. So they proceeded to try and do. Acres of sand, so no trouble about a sports field to play football in. Corner. Well, I'm afraid that's about all of Trianon and all of Polzeath. We must say goodbye now in order to give somebody else a chance. And we'll leave Polzeath as they go off to the station. We'll join the sailing camp. Now, they live on Jason. Belongs to the YMCA. It's a barge, and you live afloat. And then in the morning after breakfast, and when everything's shipshape, you row across your dinghies in order to begin the day's sailing. Now, this is ideal for those who haven't got much experience at sailing, but who want to get rescued by a lifeboat in due course. Actually, no hope of a lifeboat here, because it's all very safe and under expert supervision, and all you've got to do is to learn how to balance the boat against the breeze, and how to go about and do all the other nautical things that people do when they go boating. How's that for a way to spend a holiday? Doesn't it intrigue you? Doesn't the British in you, you know, seafaring race and all that? Oh, doesn't it? Oh, bad luck. Anyway, lots of us like it very much indeed. Well, it really is. Oh, Mr. Callahan's quite right this time. It's really great fun. And just getting round so you don't knock the post over. There aren't any traffic lights. You have to watch what you're doing. And then back to Jason for the evening. Or perhaps that was for lunch, because we're out again now. And here you are, balancing yourself against the breeze now. Isn't that fun? All you have to do is to slip your foot and out you go. Well, it is a thrill. One day I expect most of you will have a crack at this, and you'll simply love it. Well, now, when you've had enough of that and you're sufficiently experienced, you may like to do something even a bit more daring, and that is actually go cruising out into the deep. Then you might very well need a lifeboat. So we'll say goodbye to the small craft, and we'll introduce you to the South Coast Cruise. Well, not quite as gentle as that, and here one of the skippers, and he's got to know what he's doing, because he's got lives in his hands now, and you're away, far away from civilization, and you're out at sea, going to the Channel Islands, going down the coast, ready to meet all kinds of weathers, as you indeed will, in view of the kind of weather we normally get in the summertime, but with a really sturdy seagoing boat. Sleeping on board, doing everything necessary, but of course besides just sailing here, you've got to learn navigation. To be able to keep your eye on the winds, and meteorology comes into it too. Capacity to take a bearing that's accurate. Know when to take in the sheets. Capacity to read a map, a navigation map that will show you where to go and where not to go. Keeping out of the way of regattas. Of course, there's a bit of orderly work to do here, swabbing the decks and so on, keeping things shipshape. Work to be done in the galley. There he is with his super Kayla cooker, getting ready the lunch, which everybody's ready for. There he is taking a bearing. Got to keep your eye on the wind in order to ensure that you're making best use of your sails under the safest conditions. Great fun. I'm sure you'd enjoy this too, and one day when you're perhaps a bit older, it'll be for you. And you come to some pleasant inland harbor for the evening, settle down for the night, and have a snooze and a sleep. Well, that's all then from the sailing, and we'll leave it as the sun goes down, and join just for a few seconds this continental cycle tour. The cyclists haven't had much of a look in recent years, so I felt it was important to bring these in, although the pictures are rather dark. These are the ones who went down southwards across Europe to Switzerland, completely self-contained, everything with them, including their tents. And it was a long haul. Those of you who know the route to Switzerland will realize that this was no busman's holiday. It was hard work. And they had to keep going, and when they got to Switzerland, of course, all the way back again, through Liechtenstein and the other interesting places. So we pay our tribute to these hard-working fellows who prefer the wheel to the sea and the bicycle to the yacht. Well, it takes all sorts. At least they saw a great deal of Europe, and they probably saw it in a better way than most of the people who go by car, because they go too fast to notice what's happening. And that's all, I'm afraid, of the cyclists, but we pay our tribute to them and their noble endeavors, and we'll go north to Scotland to the mixed house party, where the older boys and girls had a whale of a time, north of Pitlochry in the Highlands. They all look terribly respectable because they've only just arrived. They won't look nearly so respectable soon. Bonskede is a beautiful place, ideal in every way, and it's set in beautiful scenery too. It's rather like a fairy tale castle with towers and minarets and I don't know what, all very formal, being welcomed. A real Scots welcome. Mr. Norman Pateman. Not sure whether his is a Scots or an English welcome, half each I think, I'm not quite sure. This is Pateman welcoming the girls. Now we had the opportunity there of using the coach, because the coach that took everybody northwards stayed there and was available for excursions and outings, and so it was well used. That is until it went off the road altogether by mistake, but that's another story. As you can see, it was a magnificent beast, a bit too magnificent for the small roads of Scotland. However, it did enable the party to be thoroughly mobile, and off they went to see all kinds of places of interest. Of course, you get a lot of water in Scotland. It looks as though it's raining there now, and they're sheltering under the bridge. And then away back to the coach. The sun's shining now, so it's better. And then for those who are really energetic, and you do want to be ready for plenty of exercise in Scotland, there is the opportunity to climb up to the various high places that are all around like this. Visit to the Cairngorms and the other high points of the Highlands. Obviously a lovely day here, with the sun shining and the sky blue, just the day for doing it, and the reward of those who keep on to the end, glorious views from the top. This coming year, our mixed house party's in Switzerland and not in Scotland. Of course, the way down's easy. This isn't Switzerland either. This is really Scotland, and a chairlift. Not a bicycle made for two, but a chairlift made for two. Back again at Bonskeet House, plenty of opportunity for putting on these very nice greens. The Scots are great golf players, so they do make quite sure the greens are in good order. And then only a short walk, and the tennis courts are there. Plenty of scope for tournaments. Now, this probably was the final of the tennis tournament. See what nice surrounding country it is, and a good hard tennis court as well, so it didn't much matter whether it rained or whether it didn't. Everybody very appreciative and showing their appreciation of a good shot, not only the old uns, but the young uns too. Well, now, where next? Guess what? Well, yes, quite a lot of you here went to Bembridge, which isn't a camp, but a house party. And an ideal place for a house party it is too, situated with its school and grounds right on the cliffs, away from the crowds. That's the chapel tower. Plenty of scope for walking, plenty of interesting countryside, an attractive coastline, good bathing, and this is Sunday, and this is Bible charades. I think that's Jonathan shooting the arrow. And I can't help believing that this is the chap who fell among thieves. And I guess this may be the priest who passed by on the other side, and perhaps the Levite also passing by on the other side. Well, pouring in oil and wine, wasn't it? And then setting him on his own beast and taking him to the inn, paying the innkeeper a penny, and asking him to look after him. All very nice. And then from Bembridge, on an excursion day, out into the Spithead, into the visit across from Ryde to Southampton. You can't go across this strip of water without seeing a lot of interesting shipping. It's one of the most important sea lanes, and here you see it. And they went right up to Southampton water, and lo and behold, there was one of the queens. 3 funnels, that means Queen Mary, doesn't it? Now, you may remember that about this time last year, there was a daring escape from a prison. Well, now, our cameraman happened to be there just at that particular moment, so here's exactly how it occurred. Prisoners always have a sort of suitcase ready for the off, you know, and a bag with a swag in. That has to be there, too, in their cell. And then, of course, nobody was there to stop him, not immediately anyway. And so away went the prisoner. These are very daring men, of course, stopping at nothing, revolvers and all that. And here comes the sweeper, minding his own business, but heeding the call of the police to go to their help. And so he goes to the help of the police and suffers the reward of it, and his widow gets his club money, and they blow up the trumpet, and the whole house party rushes after the thieves. And now you know how it was done. So much so then for Bembridge. Now where do we go next? Norfolk Broads. We don't seem to be able to get away from water, do we? We love our water. Well, just a few shots of the Norfolk Broads. Again, those who haven't any experience in sailing and want to learn. You've got to be quick here. You haven't got all that amount of room to maneuver in. And you've got to be very slick in order to go about just at the right moment, in order to make the most of the space you've got. And here you see them doing just that. As I say, not very much of it, but just a quick look in to tell the Broads people that we haven't forgotten them. When the time came to finish, we were asked to bring the boats in to the boatyard, get them all shipshape and tidied up, and handed over in good order. Want to make quite sure that the boats are clean, and the crew too, of course. That's right. And then away back to camp for the break-up. Well, there's Broads again this year. If you like water in the Broads, why not? Now, hundreds of you went to Westbrook last year, and hundreds of you have been to Westbrook, and if you haven't been yet, well, you don't know what you're missing. It's simply magnificent. And there is our own place, our very own, with everything for whatever you want to do. Golf, of course. Real golf. That's it. Ah, no, you did manage it that time. But not quite. And then if you like cricket, there's the very best cricketing nets that ever were, with a rubber matting, just right for cricket. And if you like haka and fond of bruises on your legs, this is just the game to play. Or if you want to do a bit of light reading for O-levels. Perhaps I should have said naught levels, I'm sorry. And of course, paddocks. And any other games that you want to play. If you want to just relax, you can relax. Or if you want to be a Cliff Richards and sing, you can do that too. No, it's somebody else this time. They seem to know how to make it twang. Little bit of orderly duty, spud bash, take long. Of course, very high quality. There are no eyes on our potatoes. And now this is Mr. Gowing Scopes, the warden, getting the thing ready for the coach, ready for the excursion. Mr. Macaulay deciding he's going by walks. But the rest by coach, including some of the ladies who cook for us. And away we go. This time it was the round the island trip, which some of you will have done. And we invaded Carisbrooke Castle to begin with, just to show that we really meant business. Here we are coming up under the portcullis, having a look down the well in the castle keep. Here we are manning the walls because we saw some great devil of war approaching from the distance. Obviously intended to break down the walls, but by the time we'd gone, all was safe and sound, and we were able to leave it in good order, and the guns were working, and we made our way from Carisbrooke back to the coach, and then on to the point of stop where we were going to have our lunch. Something to eat and something to drink. Guess what? Fresh water? No, Allen Bay, but not far from fresh water. And you look out and see the needles, needless to say, and the coloured sand that you can get at Allen Bay, and the test tubes that you buy in order to break in your pocket, full of sand of different colours. And now back again with a luscious meal waiting for us, and then time to consider for a little while the things that matter most, spiritual things which we stand for, of course, as a union. And then the commandant ceremonially lights the campfire, one of the biggest campfires I think I've ever seen. It really was a scorcher. Those of you who were there will remember the heat of that fire for a long time. And then you go home to sleep and to dream, go back to sleep and to dream. And as you dream, an Indian fakir comes through the forest and offers to do his usual ceremonial for us, annas and pice and rupees and all that. Campers watch on as he starts, all very serious. What's he going to do? Well, fluence, magic, Indian magic, Eastern charm. Is that what they call it? Wow. Now he brings his pipe out and plays music of such exquisite beauty that the camp's enthralled. So is what's in the box. And after a little while, they settle down and watch. And out comes the snake. Snake begins to become more and more interested as the music gets more and more exciting, sways to and fro, almost exciting. Ooh, ooh. Until in the end the snake attacks the music. They all have to make off. And the snake takes off as well and goes after them. And finally to the mountain school, and I think I purposely chose to put this last because in a sense we've got a parable here. I think you'll get the meaning of what I'm trying to say here. The guide, the leader, is going ahead. He hasn't got any rope attached to him apart from the one that's going down. There's no rope above him. And if he makes a mistake, well, he's had it. But he's gone ahead in order that others might follow. And we have a leader who's gone ahead, our Lord Jesus, in order that we might follow. It did cost him his life for us, and because of that, he can stay at the top and make sure that we can make it safely if we want to. And once we join ourselves to him, we're linked. And there's a rope. And if we miss our foothold, we don't go crashing. We're held from above. Rather a nice picture, isn't it, of what we're trying to do as Crusaders, learning of the Lord Jesus, who can save us and keep us and finally bring us safely up to his presence in glory. Do you see what I mean? And there's a crown of righteousness for those who finally make the grade, as our badge tells us so eloquently.
And this time we decided to call it Camp Pie because it's full of stuff inside. Yes, it's Waterloo Station, but then it's as good a beginning as any other, and I can't think of any other at the moment because that's where so many camps start. They are the hard-working baggage party, getting all hot and bothered, but getting it all on board so that it's ready for you when you arrive at camp. Mother saying, don't forget to wash behind your ears, and of course he never does. But now this is a little unusual because I think this may be an historic film. Perhaps for the last occasion, chaps are going to camp with a steam locomotive pulling the train. This might well be the last time, mightn't it? I'm not a railway expert, but they're nearly all gone. So there we are. Historic picture. Crusaders go to camp pulled by steam for the last time. They're going to Westbrook, first of all, because it's a good place to go to, and it's where 500 or 600 of you went, and where you had many happy memories. Going across from Portsmouth to Ryde, you see lots of interesting shipping, and this time, of course, the hovercraft is always making its appearance. Noisy, but very quick, and great fun. This chap standing on one leg, rather amusing, isn't it? I suppose he'd fall in his beak if he didn't. There's as a welcome at Westbrook. I wonder whether you're there, this particular one. Bit of tent inspection here, but only just for a little while to make quite sure that everything's nice and slick, and then it's breakfast time. Somebody's letting off steam. There we are. Those of you who go to Westbrook, there's Mr. Ivan Gang Scopes, the warden, to whom we're so glad, to him and to his wife, for all they do to keep the place so nice and making us so welcome. And it's breakfast time. Pass the toast. Ravioli. This is the officers. There he is, giving out the notices, and there are the new mugs. I really wanted to show you the lovely new mugs that were given to us, but there were a lot of them at camp. The new nets, they're tremendously popular, and this kind of thing is going on all the time. That one's out of the grounds. And, of course, the Hacker Court, where you can be absolutely sure to have at least 6 bruises by the time you finish one game. This chap had come a bit unstuck. This particular camp had different names for their tents. This lot were bloodhounds. They took it rather seriously, too. And this lot were going out on an expedition, and they had a map to study, and I forgot what it was they got to find, but it was all very important and frightfully exciting. While some others were having a tune, something like we've had just now, plenty of singing in camp, and plenty of fun. Of course, at Westbrook, you've got what the others haven't got, and that is a pitch and putt course. And these pictures, let me hasten to add, were not specially posed or specially taken. So the fact that he managed to hit the ball at all was really, that he really did do that. He didn't have to take it 74 times, as they do sometimes. And that was a very good lie, don't you think? Well, they say the camera can't lie, so here you are. Now, Mr. Ivan Gang Scopes is an archery expert. And here he is showing you just how to hold the bow and arrow and let the arrow drop just at the wrong minute. There it is, it falls right off. You have to wear protective clothing for this wild game. These chaps probably have never shot before, and you wouldn't believe what happened to the arrows. But some of them managed to go onto the target. There we are, and another one, bang on. Very nice. You can get very proficient after a time, and if you get to know your arrow quite well, you can shout loudly, of course, and the arrow will come back and you start all over again. Yes, there we are. Whistle. Oh, I meant to bring a whistle and blow it. I forgot. Bathing. That's right. Bathing pride. Well, bathing is an important part of camp. It's the one way we keep everybody clean, more or less. And off they go down Little Oak Hill to find where the sea's gone. Sometimes at Westbrook it is rather far away and you have a job to find it. Well, now we'll leave Westbrook and see what's in the bottle. Looks like an advertisement, doesn't it? And it tells us that we're now going to the 1966 small craft course in which boys learn how to handle sail and how to use sail for boating purposes. Under expert instruction, you can learn how to go about, and there you see them learning to go about, and the boom comes across. And it's tremendous fun, and I do recommend it for those of you who have had plenty of ordinary camping and would now like to do something more venturesome and more exciting. See, they're going to hit it any minute, and then there'll be 2.5. No, they've managed it just right. This chap's got a windscreen so you can see through the sail. Most convenient. Doesn't it feel fun? It certainly feels fun when you're on board and you can feel the lift of the wind taking you along. The day is nearly over. I'm afraid we haven't got much time to stay here. We want to visit as many different places as possible. So now we're beginning to take the homeward tack, and the other boats will be joining us. Nice little flotilla there, all part of the Crusader party. And after we've overhauled the second boat, we take our leave of the small craft course and have another look into that pie of ours, which we called Camp Pie. This time, it's to a work camp in Austria. The folk wanted a road built through this wood, right through the wood, if you please, and these Crusaders felt they wanted to lend a hand to help a children's home to improve it in some way, and this particular road was needed. And so these fellows actually paid fees in order to work, which is a very lovely Christian act. And they worked, they did, as you can see. This was one of the results of their handicraft, because they had to clear away the trees that were in the way of the road. Having cleared away the trees and got rid of the roots, and they had to dig and dig and dig, and finally finished up with a first-class road that was really surprisingly long. In a little while, I'll give you a chance to see how long this road was. This, they called it the M1. Well, yes, here they come. It was a bit dark, but you can just see the length of this road. This was the beginning part, and then round the corner, properly banked, of course, for speed, and then out into the main road, where this new road connected with the ordinary metalled highway. It was a jolly good show, and the folk there were delighted, and they gave them a tea party at the end to show them how much they appreciated their work. Well done, Crusaders who went and worked at Trefan. And now another look into the pie and a quick visit to St. David's. St. David's is a beautiful place. Of course, the city itself is a real city because it's got a cathedral. It's also got a very good camp. Ideally sited and near to White Sands Bay, with acres and acres of tremendously lovely flat, hard sand. No bother here about the crowds because there's so much room, and you can play all kinds of games. At St. David's, you've got lovely countryside around and a beautiful coastline, and so some of the time is spent trekking. Here the trekkers are getting their gear together before setting off for a real good... Oh. Anyway, it's all fixed up now, and they're off. Water isn't used very much at camp, but here something happened to the thing that holds the washing machine. So this record putter up of There now, how do you... Pretty good. Excellent. Couldn't have done it better myself. Don't you think that's pretty good? Hunt the Officer is played at most camps. Believe it or not, that's one of them. Looking like a Hindu. And this chap really did a sterling job of work all the afternoon in St. David's City. This man believed in splendid isolation. You see, you had to get his signature. Then on another occasion they went to a Welsh woolen mill to see how yarns are spun, and many a yarn was spun here. We'll go inside, and there's the spinning operation. I don't know whether you understand the intricacies of all this, but it all looks most involved. Then all the wool has to be wound onto these bobbins, and then the bobbins have to be loaded up into the machine in different colors, and in the end you finish up with this beautiful result, all done by machinery. Quite exciting and very interesting. And now a quick visit to the canoe camp. Some fellows are very fond of canoeing, and it's obviously great fun. And here, it's the inner man that's being dealt with here, first of all. Get your tremendous appetite. I don't know what this hat meant, but it looked very decorative, and so we have a picture of it. And then getting these two-man canoes out into the river. This is Wye. Wye, you know, River Wye. And these are the boats in the Wye. Afraid that's all we have. And look at our pie again and take a bit out from Tunisia, which is in Switzerland, on Lake Thun, as you probably guessed. Very attractive countryside. It's intended to be energetic there. You've got to be willing to walk if you're going to really enjoy yourself, as you can see. Well, you can see now. These chaps are going higher and higher until they find themselves almost at the snow line, with delightful peaks to look at as a reward for their hard work. But they decided they weren't going to walk down the mountain as well as walk up it, so having enjoyed the view, they went down the easy way. But again, I'm afraid we can't show you any more of Tunisia, and so we'll take a quick look at the Scilly Isles, where a lot of you were. Here comes the boat from Penzance. Everybody feeling a bit better now. It's one of the roughest crossings between anywhere to anywhere. There are two silly bobbies. I mean... Luggage loaded aboard the lorry while we go to camp, and very soon the lorry arrives, and there's our kit. Exciting place, the Scilly Isles. Plenty to do because there are such a lot of other islands to visit, and here you see them loading up to go on one of these trips. As I said, it can be very rough, so you want to take your sea legs or whatever you like to have with you, just in case. It's rather like exploring desert islands sometimes, because some of these neighboring islands aren't inhabited at all, and you can roam at will, and it all seems very wild and rugged, and you can see places where in days gone by castles have been built. And of course there are plenty of warnings for the ships, because this is dangerous coastline, and in particular the Bishop's Rock lighthouse isn't far away, but we'll come to that in a minute. This is one of those old castles on one of the islands, which you can see would have been pretty well impregnable in earlier days. They don't seem to mind running large boats like this right onto the shore, which surprises me. You'd think they'd be a bit worried about holing her, but not a bit of it. They come straight in, and there you are. Must be very fast shelving beach to be able to do this. You can jump off onto dry land. Unfortunately, our camps in the Scillies have got to be a bit smaller. They don't like big camps in the Scilly Isles, and so all our camps this coming year will be a bit smaller. The camp very kindly lent a hand to the local people. Here's the local farmer who got Crusaders to help him get some of his potatoes out of the ground. he very merrily went round with his cultivator thing and turned up the earth, and the energetic Crusaders went grubbing for potatoes, and there they are, helping him. And also they discovered that the local graveyard attached to the church was badly in need of a bit of attention. And so the camp descended upon this graveyard, much to the local vicar's pleasure, and managed to make it look a bit more respectable again. There's a good deal of climbing to be done, rock climbing, that is, of a not too difficult sort. And here you see some of this rock climbing of a not too difficult sort, provided you like this kind of thing. Looks very rugged. That thing over to the right looks like a great monster waiting to descend on you. But there are ropes there, and the chap at the top has got the rope well and truly, and the fellow coming up, if he falls, well, he won't fall very far. Nobody fell, and all was well. But you can imagine the sense of real achievement when you've sort of struggled for the first time and managed to get at last to the top. There are others who don't like climbing, but they like looking in among the rock pools and finding life there. Watch this chap in a moment catch a fish with his hand. There's a fish in that little bag. Now, there's one there. One gets away and he catches the other one. Watch. Got him. There we are. Even David Dixon couldn't do better than that, could he? Now, this was a trip to have a look at the Bishop's Rock Lighthouse, and on the way they decided they'd catch some mackerels. They put them into a box, into a basket, and felt that it was a very nice idea to give it to the lighthouse keepers on Bishop's Rock Lighthouse. And so when they got there, they signaled and said, "Would you like sort of a fish tea?" And the lighthouse keeper said, "Yes, very much. We see plenty of ships, but we don't get much fish. They have fish and chips for tea." There goes the boy, and in go the fish, and there they are, with the fish going across, all ready for a nice light tea. Ha ha ha. But you haven't heard the end really, because their dining room was right at the top, so it's a high tea. Now we're going on our way back, and it's time for the evening meeting, and after a sing, led in an unconventional but a very popular way, we settle down to listen to the things that matter most. I wonder whether some of you chaps here who went to camp have found it tough going and feel a bit disappointed. Some of the things that you were told perhaps don't seem to have worked out quite as you had hoped. I wonder whether it's because perhaps you've neglected the Maker's instructions which are contained in the Scriptures. You see, we're awfully good at doing that sort of thing. Like this boy who was given a job of work to do, and he was told what to do. There's a perfectly good cookery book in the drawer, of sort, made his mouth water. But of course, to do that, you've got to read the instructions. Well, I can't be bothered about the instructions. Gracious me, I've seen my mother do it often enough. If she can do it, I'm sure I can. You put a bit of flour in, as I'm sure that's right. A bit more. Why, she never measures it. I'm sure she doesn't know how much she puts in. What do you have next? Oh, something to mix it up. A bit of water to mix it up with. Why, that looks about right. No, we have a bit more because, you know, you're never quite sure. I want to make it nice and moist. That's right. And then mix it all up. What shall we put with it? I'm very fond of chocolate. We'll put some chocolate. Chocolate's jolly good stuff, you know, and it turned into nice. It looks rather an important, convincing colour now, but a bit more flavour, really, we could do with. Anyway, we'll mix it up first, and then we'll add some more flavour, just to make quite sure. You see, the fathead didn't look at the instructions. Let's put in some tomato ketchup. That'll go quite well. Yes, jolly good. Awfully fond of tomato ketchup, and it really does make a thing look much better. And Worcester sauce is rather jolly, too. And so, you see, he's gone about it with a will. He's quite sincere. He really wants to make a cake, like some of us want to live the Christian life, but he's doing it sort of without really bothering about how to do it at all. He's just taking it as it comes, And you can't do it that way, not really. Isn't it the way a lot of us try to live our Christian life? We don't bother to turn to the recipe book and see how to live it. That's right, stick it in the oven, let's give it a good bit of heat, let's go through all the right motions, but everything's wrong, really. The only right thing this chap did was to clear up after him, but if only he'd got out the book and started again, oh, heavens. And when Mother came home, she made a perfectly good cake for him. He could have done that too with a little trying if only he'd taken notice of what the book said. Yes, that's it. You should have done that at the beginning. But you know, we won't learn the lesson, will we? Oh, do you? Do you really look at your book every day? Your Bible? Just for a little while? And if the answer is no, then of course you'll make a mess of it. How can you expect anything different? So let's be serious about the Christian life if we mean it. And now we'll go on to Bembridge, a bit more out of the pie, which is a good pie, this one. And Bembridge is a very attractive harbour where there's plenty of very posh sailing, but also there's a very nice house party. And here there was a giant stride fixed up by the commandant. There's the commandant just showing you that he doesn't mind having a go too. Great fun. Guaranteed to deliver you on time in the right place, perhaps. All the other things go on at Bembridge that go on at camp. It's a good place to start your camping experience because, of course, it's not a camp at all. It's a house party. Oh, by the way, talk about football. What about this chap? Look at this shot. Sign him on for Leicester City straight away. That's the idea. Sorry, I should have said Manchester United. Well, let's go and have a bathe anyway. Down the cliff, and there's an opportunity for a bathe. Everybody goes in after the pickets. Meanwhile, the commandant on the shore got very good at throwing the lifeline into the water and jerking it out again. And in the end, he managed to get it over a chap's head, and by pulling very hard, he jerked him out as well, just like that. Oops. One of the excursions we normally do from the Isle of Wight is to visit Southampton docks. And here the coach waited to pick up the party, to take them down to Ryde Pier. And they walk along Ryde Pier to the end of there, and on the left, our own private boat is waiting to take us across Spithead and up Southampton Water. And of course, Southampton is one of the most important seaports of the world, and you always are sure to see a lot of very interesting shipping. And this is Forley, the place where the oil depot is, and if you can read backwards, this is in fact the Queen Mary. And what a very big anchor a boat like that needs. Look at that. And then some tea afterwards for lunch, which we brought with us with Polly Perkins there. And so goodbye to Bembridge and to Moss Side. Now here are some more Crusaders who spent their whole holiday, from the Crusader point of view, paying their fees in order to help other people. These folk live in a part of Manchester called Moss Side, where things aren't very pleasant, life isn't too easy, lots of drabness, and lots of boys and girls. And they'd come in order to help repair a church. They were going to paint it. And these are the little ones who are around. And there they've got it, Crusader Work Camp, 7th to 21st August. They're here, very much so. And as you can guess, the local people were very interested to see these folk who'd come to do a job of work. Not only was there painting to be done, but a certain part of the structure was dangerous and needed to be demolished. And here, although he'd never done it before, and I'm sure he doesn't belong to any union other than the Crusaders, is gradually taking the church down. I know it doesn't look as though it's helping, but he really was in making this safe. instructions from below, from the onlookers. And it wasn't long before the boys and girls around decided they'd like to lend a hand. And so here they are having a go at the railings. I'm not sure whether the railings got more paint or their clothes, but they had a very nice time and much enjoyed doing the work and got to know the workers too. And in the second part of the camp, in the second part of the camp, the workers, the Crusaders, took the boys and girls out for some outings and some games in the park. And here they are. I think it was a very wonderful job of work these chaps did, that they were willing, instead of just amusing themselves, to be of service to other people and to give others a good time and to help this church, which so badly needed help, which in the painting and the decorating, which they couldn't afford to do themselves. And very soon they were playing rounders and all the other kinds of games that boys and girls like to play, chariot races and the lot. And of course they'd brought some tea with them too, so there was something to eat and something to drink when they were tired. And of course these Crusaders remembered that they weren't only made of body and mind, but they were spirit too, and they had a chance to hear a little bit of the love of God for boys and girls. Well done, Moss Side Crusaders, those who went to Moss Side. Well, we'll just drop in at the Broads camp. Lovely site called Oby, at Oby, O-B-Y. And for the first time, this was a mixed camp. And Crusader boys and Crusader girls together. There they are, all together. And it was a wonderfully happy and enjoyable time. There's the campsite, and there are the boats ready to be used next outing. The only thing you have to be careful of is that when you've got the ladies present, you've got to keep your eye on what you're doing. There's many a... Oh, this was some sing-song in the dunes, a tune in the dunes. All very tuneful and all very colourful. As I was saying, you can't keep your look at a pretty girl and steer a boat at the same time. And there's many a bachelor ship, they say, wrecked on a permanent wave. Anyway, there were plenty of willing hands to bail him out afterwards. And I think we've got to say farewell now to the Norfolk Broads with just one or two exciting shots of going at speed in a good wind and a... Yes, I'm glad you're shouting because it's one of the best sights that ever was. But unfortunately, I haven't got an awful lot for you for this because when Mr. Murray Thompson went to get this for me, it rained most of the time. But anyway, this chap was using a bit of water now and again. That's a wash, in case you didn't know. And now it's raining and it's time for breakfast. You can see the rain, it jolly well came down. But it doesn't matter whether it rains or whether the sun shines. We have a marvelous time in camp. Something to do all the time. Porridge for breakfast makes healthy Crusaders. Don't you like porridge? Oh. Well, if you don't like porridge, there's always what's to follow after. On this particular occasion, I think it was egg on toast. Yes? Egg. Well, now here I really must put in a commercial because it's very important to do commercials. Do you know this chap? This is the little sign that says you ought to go to work on an egg. Here's an egg. Here's a chap going to work on it. I'm sure he's going to do a very good day's work as a result of all that. Now let's go to Moor and Dart. You've got both Moor and Dart at Moor and Dart, as you would expect. It's actually Stoke Fleming is the place, and I think the camp's going to be known as Stoke Fleming in future. But this is the Moor bit, more or less. The idea is to is to find a tor, and when you've found the tor, you climb it. And when you get to the top, you wave just to show that you've got to the top. Or if you want to, oh dear, this chap's got an inflation trouble. Oh, they've got it inflated now, and they're going out to fetch the boat, bring it in order to do some sailing on the Dart. So that's why we call it, or have called it up to now, Moor and Dart. Not quite sure how much longer we're going to do much sailing. It's not easy to get these boats. All the same, here they are, having a bit of sailing and a lot of fun in a stiff breeze. How'd you like to join this lot? Fun, isn't it? Thrilling. And now, to conclude our film, the expedition that went all the way to Norway. They went from Newcastle. Here they are crossing over to Norway from Newcastle, studying the map, showing their fjords and so on that they would be going up. And they're from Bergen, they're leaving Bergen to go up to Sognefjord. Of course, the idea was eventually to do a lot of trekking. And so they're on their way now to the part where they were going to trek. Once again, real effort and real energy needed and real willingness to walk and walk again, enjoying the countryside as you went, this fast-flowing stream with lots of fish in it, actually, and on and up, until in the end they found themselves at the snow line, actually walking across snow and pitching camp with the snow up the ravine. I think this is the coolest shave this chap's ever had. And over rickety bridges that really took a little bit of courage to go across at all. There wasn't an awful lot to hold on to. And if your foot had slipped, you could have gone quite a long way down into the water and a good deal further on. Well, all good things come to an end, and we've had our time now, and I hope that this has brought back to those of you who camped last year some happy memories, and that others of you who haven't yet been to camp will go to camp this coming year.
This is a village hall in the north of London. It's typical of the meeting places in which Crusader classes gather, cafes, school halls, village halls, anywhere, in fact, where there's a piano and where boys can come together. As you see here, they come together in their hundreds and in their thousands. The more so as it seems boys are not interested, or often are not interested, alas, in their Sunday schools. And there we have a mission field all of our own. It is an interesting question to ask why they come. There's nothing very unusual about a Crusader class. Here they are, a bunch of jolly youngsters ready for the meeting to begin. And here, years ago, a picture taken in the Saffron's rooms at Eastbourne. Saffron's rooms bombed out of existence now. And the answer for the reason for their coming is we center all our activity around the Scriptures. We believe that God has spoken to every generation, and Sunday by Sunday we open the book together to hear what God has to say to us. The wonderful thing is that the boys recognize that it's real and true, something that is not just human. And although they couldn't put it in as many words, that's why they come. This is Crouch Hill in Crouch End in the north of London. The reason we show this picture is because here was where the very first Crusader class was started, before the word Crusaders was ever thought of. A lady and gentleman at this house felt the need for boys who weren't being attracted to the Sunday schools, and there in their drawing room, the Reverend A.C. Kestin held the first meeting which subsequently became Crusaders. Mr. Bevington soon went back to India as a missionary, and the work was taken over by Mr. Bevington, still with us today, although he's 80 years old, a great friend, stalwart of the work. And when Mr. Keston came back in 1906, Mr. Bevington took the opportunity of calling together the leaders of the 11 classes that had come into existence while he'd been away. And here you see the names of those foundation classes which formed the Union in those days. Little did those men realize the foundations they were in fact laying. Little did they guess how great it was to grow in the years that were to follow. This is the Thames in London, and that's Blackfriars Bridge. Well, now, if you stand on Blackfriars Bridge and look upriver, westward, on your right you can see a number of buildings along the embankment, and that warm, brown, reddy brick building is where the Union was born. On the right is the City of London School, and next to it is this place called Zion College. It was to Zion College in 1906 that Mr. Bevington invited the leaders to meet Mr. Keston. They'd hired an upper room in that place called Zion College. Let's get a little nearer to it. There it is, just on the right, just coming into view. It's the sort of door, it's the meeting room over the doorway, over the porch. An upper room of precious memories indeed. There they agreed together that they would form this union, calling it the Crusaders' Union. And the date was the 29th of March, 1906. They decided they must have a badge and other things, such as magazines and so on. And we continue to give thanks for all that has stemmed from the foundation laying of those earlier years. Here is a typical committee meeting of some years ago, with Mr. Vereker reading the minutes of the last meeting, Mr. Bevington in the chair. Mr. Vereker was the first Secretary of the Union. And there Mr. Montague Goodman rises to make some point with regard to the minutes that have just been read. Mr. Lang is on the right of Mr. Goodman. So the matter is put to the meeting, unanimity again, and set purpose. So the work has gone on. Chairman at the time this film was taken, Mr. Alan Farrin, who's in the Bank of England, an executive in the Bank of England, and now a thought of the magazine, and our editor for more than a quarter of a century, Mr. Cecil Allen. What a lot we owe to him for his indefatigable efforts on our behalf in the magazine. He is now retired, and Mr. Randall Mannering has taken his place. We do continually give thanks for all that Mr. Allen has meant to the Union. And here are two of them foundation members, Mr. Bacon on the left and Mr. John Lang, Sir John Lang, I should say, on the right. Two great friends of the work. This was a conference centre near Reading, and leaders don't always do this sort of thing in conference time, but this was Saturday afternoon, which we set aside for recreation. And you always find leaders can quickly discover where there's something that interests them. Not only rowing, but this model railway. And soon the leaders were having a good ride on it. So they have their ride during this bit of recreation, but it only lasts an hour or two, and they're back again, considering papers and discussing, sharing with one another experiences of the work, trying to learn from one another. Here you'll see Mr. Roy Cattell addressing the leaders on a sunny afternoon. Mr. Cattell had a great deal to do with bringing Billy Graham to Great Britain for the Haringey Crusade and the Wembley Crusade. And here the leaders, having listened to his paper, arise to discuss it, making points. There's Sir John Lang making some point out of his long experience as a Crusader leader. And then the Reverend Alan Stibbs, Vice Principal of Oak Hill Theological College, with a comment to make. And Mr. Dick True from one of our Birmingham classes, also with something to say. Here now another session has concluded. This session has been held inside and not outside, but I expect it's stopping for tea. Yes, there are the cups of tea taken on the lawn. Everything stops for tea in England. I expect it does in other places too. And here the leaders can meet together, old discussing with young, the work, Mr. Warren and Mr. Stunt, There's Mr. Montague Goodman, for many, many years, leader of the Moleswood class, a vice president, a great friend. We give thanks for Mr. Montague Goodman. And here in Scotland, the leaders have come together for their annual conference at the Gein House near Stirling. A lovely old place, set in beautiful Scottish countryside. They say the camera cannot lie, and indeed that's true, for these were the autumn tints of that early November gathering in the Gein House for the leaders' conference near Stirling. Here the Scottish leaders paraded for the benefit of the camera in order to show the world the kind of stuff Scottish leaders are made of. The chairman that year was Mr. Ian MacPhail, and there he is. And the speaker that weekend was Reverend Macbeth, a great friend of the Union and a vice president. Mr. Herbert Stewart was our honorary secretary in Scotland for very many years, and there he is. And now Mr. Norman Wright has taken his place. There he's measuring the light with a light meter. When we were 25 years old, we had a rally of thanks in the Albert Hall in London. And here you see the rather ancient fashions and the rather ancient coaches and buses that brought contingents from class after class. Finchley there, and St. Albans there, all making their way to the Albert Hall. We'd only arranged one meeting, but alas, more thousands turned up than we'd expected, and so they had to have an overflow meeting in the open air outside. On the more recent occasion when we celebrated our 50th anniversary, we had both an afternoon and an evening rally, and the hall was completely filled on each occasion. No mean task, because it's a big hall. Now this is the main entrance of Westbrook, our Isle of Wight estate, 28 acres of beautiful grounds and a very delightful house. Here Mrs. Lang was announcing Westbrook officially open on a very wet afternoon. There you see them gathering together. The rain was coming down at the time. Our Commodore Wiseman there on the right was introducing Mrs. Lang, and Mrs. Lang went up and opened the door officially, and that was Westbrook's official opening. It was at Easter time, and very soon the first Easter house party was in full swing, and the Crusader flag being run up for the first time. Since then, thousands of Crusaders have enjoyed the delights of this lovely centre. There's an excellent tennis court that's used more often for haka and handballs such as this. And although it was Easter time, there were some who wanted to have a bathe. Bathe they did, including Sir John Lang. There he goes with the other three, and by the time they were ready to get into the water, he was in a long time and ready to come out. You can just see him beginning to make his way out now. There are some lovely flowers in the gardens of Westbrook in daffodil time. The grounds are overflowing with daffodils, hundreds and thousands of them. Our memorial is a place of remembrance, and we have there a book of remembrance to the Crusaders, many hundreds of them, who laid down their lives in the late war. And here in this book of remembrance are inscribed more than 600 names, fellows whom we greatly miss. And there in the conference room over the speaker's head is a plaque which speaks of Westbrook being to their memory, to their grateful memory. And there's Mr. Vereker on the right. He became warden of Westbrook when his health deteriorated, and now Mr. Ivan Gowing-Scopes has taken his place, Mr. Vereker having retired. This is an Easter egg, and it is in fact intended to introduce Easter time, because in the Easter holidays we often arrange excursions. And here is our very own Crusader Special with its own headboard and our own very special carriages. Oh yes, we always travel first class in the Crusaders Union. Everybody getting ready for an outing. There we are, pulling out of Waterloo Station, a train completely full of about 600 Crusaders. Now we are on the way, going through Malden, New Malden in Surrey, passing another express at speed, all very exciting, and we're running now into the dockyard of Southampton. We had a ship already laid on for us, the Balmoral. This was going to take us down Southampton docks. Here we are, coming off the train and going on to our own ship. I don't know whether they expected trouble, that they sent a police sergeant to look after us, but they need not have bothered. And there everybody's almost on board, and we are ready to, what do? Splice the main brace? Oh no, that's not quite right. Cast off, isn't it? Anyway, there they are doing whatever they do in order to set us free to begin our journey down these many miles of interesting dockland. So the gentleman on the bridge gave us a running commentary, giving us details of where they went and the cargo they carried and all the other things that interest a boy. There you see them listening to this running commentary, and there is the gentleman himself. He's not eating an apple, he's speaking into a microphone, giving us this most interesting description of all that these ships meant. And there was one of the Queens, 2 funnels. I can never get them sorted out. I think that's the Queen Elizabeth, isn't it, with its 2 funnels. And there's our own skipper at the controls of our own boat. Fellows enjoy this kind of an outing enormously. And after we'd been round the docks, we came back to tea in the canteen and then the journey home again. Now, also in the north and the Midlands, we have an outing, and this is another outing, another year, in Liverpool, in the Mersey. And we are going out to the North Sea to see what it was like. No, not the North Sea, the Irish Sea, I should have said. He's feeling all right so far, but he's not too sure of himself. We're not feeling so good at all. There you see Liverpool Cathedral on the skyline, and we're running into the docks now with the Royal Liver building there. And also in the Easter holidays we have athletic sports. We normally hire the University of London's delightful athletic track in Motspur Park, South London. We have a properly printed program in which the names of the competitors all appear. We run to a very carefully timed schedule, and we normally keep to it too. So it's an outing in which tremendous interest is shown. And here you see them running in lanes in true Olympic fashion. The Amateur Athletic Association take over and act as judges and referees and timekeepers. As you see, there are cups and a challenge shield to be won each year. That challenge shield goes to the class that gets the most points. You see them throwing the discus. There's a very delightful stand, a covered stand, seating accommodation. And all the time the races are on, there's a running commentary being given over the tannoy system. You see the 3/8 starter starting off one of the races. And there are the judges judging first, second and third, making sure that they get it without any mistakes. And all the time the details are being recorded there in the recorder's box in the rear. All the first, second and third, and there the running commentary being given regarding all that's taking place. So there's not a dull moment, and everybody knows exactly what's happening all the time. Even those who are not very familiar with athletic sports know what's going on. And here's Mr. Harold Thompson, the Secretary of the Sport, who runs them so efficiently. This is the little people's race, the only light-hearted part of the afternoon, little visitors' race. And there they get their prizes straight away. Of course, we can't expect them to wait until the prize giving. And off they go with their trophies and on with the more serious sports again. We put up some very fine times, some of these chaps. And we have some excellent athletes in the Union. How's that for an American roll? Am I right? I think it's the American roll. And putting the shot. And then lastly, the prize giving. On this occasion, the prize giver was Sir John Lang. As you see, he takes a very full part in all the Union's activities. Each year we have some notable celebrity to give away the prizes. And now this is London, and this is Ludgate Hill, and it was coronation time. And that's why it was all so well decorated. There's Queen Anne. She's dead, as you know, but beyond her lies the Crusaders Union offices. Number 1, Ludgate Hill or St. Paul's Corner, whichever you like. Come in there, and on the second floor you'll find our not very big offices, together with a book room. And it's there that we seek to serve. That's Miss Burnell, who was my secretary for very many years and is now retired. Mr. Daniel Marney, who's been there longer than any of us. He runs the bookroom and looks after the accounts. And there is a sense in which the work of the union is like a harvest field. First of all, there's the ploughing and the sowing of the good seed. But in due time, we believe there'll be, and there always is, a harvest. And here you see an ordinary class on a Sunday afternoon. This is all part of the ploughing and the sowing that in due time produces fruit unto God. Here's an ordinary class on a Sunday afternoon. This brings back memories of that wonderful day which was televised and filmed. And here you see the Queen being presented with a copy of the Scriptures. What telling words. What a wonderful act at the beginning of her coronation service. Telling words indeed, as she receives that Bible. Here is wisdom. This is the royal law. These are the lively oracles of God. Could anything be truer? And yet, alas, how few these days give the Bible the place it deserves and the attention it deserves. There is the Coronation Bible, the one we present to our boys when they become Crusader Knights. It's not quite like that, but it's got the same contents. It's the same precious book. And our aim, Sunday by Sunday, year in and year out, is to give this precious book into the hands and into the hearts of Crusaders, that it may bring forth its own harvest. Men of God, fitted for service in his kingdom while on earth. Here you see Crusaders being presented with their knighthood Bibles. And on this occasion, as I told you at the beginning, it was Jubilee, and we gave thanks for 50 glorious years of steady progress, and we still do so. And we go on looking unto Jesus, which is the motto of the Crusaders' Union, until he come again. Well, it is the end, and yet it is the beginning, because there's always a beginning going on in a Crusader class. Before I sign off, may I add a final word in saying how much we value the prayers and the interest of those who feel that this work is meeting a need in those places where there are boys not being reached by the Sunday schools. Let it never be said that we are competing with the Sunday schools. That's the very last thing that should be said. We only fish in waters that are not being reached by others. Alas, in England, only 10% of the population darkens the door of a church. So the opportunity before us, without in any way poaching on anybody else's preserves, is immense. But we know that our project and our enterprise has failed unless eventually a boy finds his place into the church of his choice as a lively member of it, pulling his weight in every way, taking his place in the worship and in the service of his church. I'm glad to be able to say that at this moment, while I'm speaking, there are 119 Crusaders training for the ministry in the various theological colleges of England. I doubt whether there are many societies that can claim that number. Not that we have anything to boast about or to be proud of. It's something to give thanks for. But it does, I think, make it clear to those who might perhaps criticize us that we are stealing from the churches, that it is not so. Rather the reverse. We are giving back to the churches men of God. Many of these men in theological colleges would gladly say that but for the fact that as a boy they became a Crusader, they would never have known the spiritual truths, would never have come to know Christ, would never have had any calling to his ministry. And so we regard ourselves as a missionary society, specializing in a particular need, the need of the schoolboys of our day, who so often find Sunday school unattractive. And that is our aim, and that is our calling. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for your prayers. We hope we may have both for a long time to come.